please help me in welcoming our robotic telepresence of Wendell Wallach. Obstacle avoidance is a classic problem in robotics. Another one is edge and cliff detection, so we hope he doesn't fall off the stage. Oh, he's doing a great job. Hello, Wendell. Okay. Yeah, getting a little close. There you go. So, do we have audio? We can't hear you, Wendell. Are we getting the mic here? Our first technical challenge. Yeah, so for those who aren't familiar with telepresence robots, the idea is that you can be anywhere in the world where you can get an internet connection, and then you can connect. So it's sort of like Skype, but instead of just having a video screen, which this has, you also have a body, which means you can move around in the building. You can go find people in their offices, attend meetings, and generally be in other places around the world. And right now, it's just mobility, but conceivably you could put hands and graspers and other things, and you could actually do work remotely of various sorts, pick things up, move them around, build things. And telepresence is really interesting. So a lot of the work I do is on military robotics, and drones have been a very successful military robotic technology, and that's essentially a kind of telepresence. You have the ability to see through cameras. You're controlling an aircraft at a great distance. So they're not really autonomous robots in the way that Ginger is, because Ginger is programmed and acts independently. This is remote controlled. At the moment, it's mute. But you can really do a lot with that. Of course, drones have this other feature of being able to fire weapons, and that's something that's more concerning. We're getting you now. We're getting you.
Okay, good. All right.
All right.
So that means you didn't. That means everything I said earlier that people didn't hear. Is that correct?
Right. So we're just hearing you for the first time. So.
Okay. Well, hi everybody. This is the first time I'm making an appearance as a robot. I would have waved, but I'm in my Venus de Milo outfit today. But nice to see you all out there. And maybe I can invade your space again, Peter, just so that we have the appropriate.
Yes, violating my personal space. That's great.
Okay.
Yeah, much harder to do on Skype.
And now we're back in the American appropriate distance, aren't we?
I think that's pretty good. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
So what's it like to be a robot? And I guess you were mute for a little while there, so I wonder if you felt sort of powerless at that moment, or do you feel actually sort of, because you can violate my personal space, I don't know, what's it like to be a telepresence?
Well, it's a strange phenomenon. I mean, in the spirit of what we're doing today, it's kind of like exploring a totally new art medium, trying to sense what it can be and what it isn't. I find that I'm somewhat distracted because I think about where the robot is. I'm also thinking about what the audience is experiencing as they look at this robot. I mean, do you all really care what I have to say at all, or is it just that we have this fun robot in front of us? But the fact is, my words, my gestures, everything are being mediated through this system that I really don't have very much control over. It may be very different 10 years down the line when these things are much more wired into us and we have some sense it'll pick up gestures or maybe even facial expressions. But at the moment it feels like a somewhat limited communication. For example, I had no idea that you couldn't hear me at all. So I was going on mumbling various lines here before it came to my attention that you weren't hearing me. Well, if I were in that room, I would be picking up cues from all of you, and I would be sort of engaged in a dialogue with you relative to what was taking place in the room. Much harder to do through a telepresence.
I see. So, but you agree that sort of all of our interactions are in some sense mediated. Is there a different character of the mediation that you sense from the robotic aspect of it in particular?
Well, I'm not convinced that all of our interactions are mediated. I do think that communication is pretty second nature for most of us. We feel that we are present. I mean, we may be a bit distracted or thinking through what we're going to do, but most of the time we're pretty present and we're engaged in what we're doing. But definitely, any communication through a robot is mediated, and that always raises the question of whether what is being communicated through the mediator is what you had intended. So, for example, this becomes a really big issue when you talk about something like robotic surgery, that a surgeon has been dealing with the Da Vinci system, for example, for many months and is very skilled at using it, but there's still the sense that the robot is mediating the actions of the surgeon, and is the robot actually expressing exactly what the surgeon intended. So when I talk through a robot, I have nothing but words to use. Are the audience hearing what I'm intending to say? Or is there something about looking at this cute little fellow on the stage that is actually lending a somewhat different meaning to my words than they might have had otherwise?
Well, that's true. I would think, though, that you might argue that language is itself a form of media and mediation, right? So that even talking face-to-face, that we're using media and the technology of language. But I wonder, you used the word presence as well, and I wondered, is there something sort of essential to presence that we have as human beings or as conscious entities? And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that, and is that something that can be transmitted through telepresence?
Well, this is what I question whether it can be. I think there's something very unique about us as human beings. Everybody's sitting in this room and you're sort of taking into account the whole space, the quality of the light, the pressure of the seat against your butt, the temperature in the room. Your mind is actually expanding to fill that whole space, and that's something I have to project into the robot. It's not something that's just naturally there. I'm not fully conscious. I'm not getting all the rich texture, sense experience that I would have if I were truly in the room with you. But that said, there's some very interesting things here. From a distance, I'm able to see you. So that's one step beyond what happens when we try and communicate through radio or through a normal telephone. So that's a nice addition. And perhaps in some future years we'll be able to have some richer sense expression through these mediated systems.
And maybe there's a comparison or an analogy to childhood and infancy, and even as human beings, we have to learn to use our bodies, and we have to learn to become present, and maybe the technology is just at that sort of first step of evolution and learning.
It seems to be. I mean, this is the first time I've ever been a robot, and so God knows what form it will take 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. I expect it will get richer and richer. I'm a skeptic about whether we're going to get to robotic presences, either autonomous or telepresence, that will have as rich in awareness as rich faculties as we humans do, but the fascinating part about studying this subject area is there's all kinds of projects to try and bring the semblance of consciousness into robots, artificial emotions, ability to read facial expressions, all kinds of other faculties, and it's certainly something fascinating to witness.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Wendell, for joining us as a telepresence, and we'll talk to the flesh version of you a little later in the panel.
Thank you, Peter.
If you want to park up here for now.
Thank you all, and with a little
join me in thanking
I'll be able to get back up here. Let's see if we can do this without bumping into a table.